that wasn't my impression, but if they are, that's fantastic. They need to be doing that.
Well,
They need to be doing it on an aggressive level.
That's my understanding. I'm not saying it's completely 100% true, but that was my understanding.
Okay, well, then they're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
You know, and I think that the other thing is, you know, working in the private sector, you know, my benefits decreased a lot. And, you know, when I had absolutely no copay, I've seen my copays go up every year for the last 5 years. So the reality is, I think there needs to be a realistic understanding that government employees probably have to accept this as well. I mean, the last thing we want to do is fire people, and the last thing we want to do is reduce services. But at a certain point, after trying all these other things, everything needs to be on the table.
And a somewhat broader, sort of a follow-up question to Terry. We've had one sitting candidate who has said that much of the talk about the bleak state of the county finances is just that. It's talk, that it's not reality.
The police state?
No, the bleak, the poor condition of the county finances is just that. It's talk, and that the county is actually on a solid financial footing. And yet another candidate, his main position is basically the county finances are terrible, and that if we, similar to what you're saying, that if we don't do something about it, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. I didn't get a sense of where you stand on that particular issue, and I was hoping that you could address that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that the county, in terms of its services and its employees and its function, is solid. I mean, I think we have one of the strongest utility programs around. That we're in a good place in terms of how the government is functioning. But what I'm really concerned about is the idea of burning through our reserves. And I think we're going to be dipping below the 25% in terms of reserves after next year if we continue on this path. And I'm very uncomfortable with that. I think we need to maintain our reserves for the very specific reason of having to deal with emergencies. And, you know, pardon me for geeking out here because I like to read a lot of science journals, but, you know, the sunspot activity on the sun is directly correlated to the weather down here, and they talked about all the increased sunspot activity up there and how it's going to happen, and the weather we're having down here. I mean, I think we have to be ready for hurricane preparedness and those kind of storm issues. So I'm uncomfortable with going below the reserves of 25%. So I think it's really critical that we maintain that level and that we have to look at everything else.
We've talked here quite a bit about baseball, and the fact is the Red Sox stadium's a done deal, but obviously we've also talked about the Twins, and it seems that, at least from our understanding, that not all the numbers are yet known in terms of what that 30-year commitment is going to be. How would you, if elected, how would you approach decisions about baseball? And do you have any critiques about the way this was handled, this particular decision was handled?
Okay, well, it's already happened. It's after the fact, but if you want my opinion on how it's been handled, then I will say this. I think that this is a demonstration of a very fundamental flaw in leadership and vision. I mean, these are problems that we're all foreseeing. If you're going to make a lavish investment in one team, you know that you're going to have to deal with the consequences of having another team wanting just as big a treatment, and then you know that there's going to be a third stadium sitting empty. And the reality is the tourism development tax was created to promote tourism in off-season. Now, if you had, and I've seen all the economic data and the studies, I know that those two teams bring in $48 million a year. Now, if that was bringing in $48 million a year in terms of impact in October, that would be a different story. I would be strongly supportive of it. But this is during high season. It has nothing to do with the mission of the TDC and how those dollars were supposed to be spent. And as a consequence, I can tell you that the return on investment is something that doesn't really impress me that much. When I know for a fact that commercial and sport fishing brings in about $600 million a year between Lee and Charlotte County. Now you tell me, I think water quality projects would go a long way further in terms of ensuring of a stronger economic impact for the area, and especially for tourism, which would be more year-round. So I think that, you know, the idea that we had commissioners that were negotiating with these teams, you know, I would not step into an arena with someone who is used to negotiating contracts and for $100 million with team players. I think that the hubris of that is amazing, and we should have hired outside people to come in and help us with those negotiations. And furthermore, when you take a look at the fact that Sarasota was the only team, the only city that was a real threat to us in terms of losing the Red Sox, and they took a look at the lavish demands that were being asked upon them, and they wiped their hands of it and said, good luck. And what did they do? They turned around and they reinvested and upgraded their existing urban downtown facility for just $30 million. Well, we really nearly did that for triple that. So again, I don't see how that was a wise use of dollars. And taking a look at all of that, I just really question the path that they took on this.
So with that, with the Red Sox being a done deal, the Twins being a done deal, and now looking at something to do with the city of Palms Park, you know, there's been conversations about the Nationals, there's been conversation about the swim center. Your statement that commissioners should not be dealing with those contracts, does that also imply that staff that's currently trying to put something in that facility should not be doing it, and y'all should have a professional team?
No, I only
doing
refer
that?
to negotiating a contract. If you're talking about, you know, multi-million-dollar contracts, you know, it's perfectly reasonable to hire a lawyer or someone else to come in and represent you on something like that. Because I think, as a county commissioner, you have to have the ability to walk away. You have to have to be able to not be so emotionally involved that you can say, you know what, this isn't meeting all our needs. That's all I'm referencing as.
Sure. You got any good ideas for the city of Palms Park? It seems like they need some.
Yeah, actually, I do. You know, I personally think that stadium is functionally obsolete. What I would do is something very radically different. But again, I think that the commissioners have almost a near fetish with baseball that I don't even know if this could even, they could even work in their minds. But, you know, I've talked about what are we really good at here in Lee County? You know, we have tourism, we're correct. But you know what? Something else that we're actually quite good at is life extension and the medical aspect of this community. What is it? The 15th largest employer is 21st Century Oncology. Then you have Hope Healthcare. Then you have ShellPoint, and then number one, of course, is Lee Memorial Health System. You know, economists call this comparative advantage. What are your strengths? What do you already excel in? And as a pharmaceutical sales rep who's had for the last 5 years of national distinction in sales, you know, we're taught, you know what, 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients. You need to go where your momentum is. And when you take a look at the city of Portland, who's created like an age lab, where they had 300 homes that were high-tech wired, organizations that came in that were high-tech organizations that came in and brought in their products and they test market these things. And it's all about promoting independent living so people don't have to go into a nursing home, and they don't have to go into an assisted facility. So Portland is doing this. I think we need to be doing the same thing. We need to be having those kind of satellite offices down here, because for every high-tech job you bring in here, you create 5 more high-paying jobs. And I take a look at that area where the city of Palms Park is, and that whole area, with all the different public buildings, everything from the old school board building to the old library to, you know, all the different facilities around there, I think that would make a terrific area for like a high-tech ShellPoint, and basically create like a free trade zone where corporations could come in, and we would rezone and re-permit everything so they can come into that area, a mixed-use facility that could easily work with you know, a community that was focused on independent living and maintaining it through that. And you see, the thing is, I understand the Duane plan, and Duane really encouraged to have growth to the other side of the city, not concentrate on all the water development, because the more you can do behind it, then you're going to have all that density, which is really going to activate the downtown area. I mean, it would double the density right away, something like that. Then you know what, all the lawyers' offices, sorry, Luis, would be no longer on the ground floor. They would move up because you'd have so much greater desire for commerce and shops and restaurants about on the first floor. They would be near the water, which is what people like to do, and they would be right next to the hospital, which would be a great service to have. Look, when I talk to people, you know what the number one thing that a lot of people from Shell Point have complained to me about? They want a better busing system. They feel kind of isolated, and they want to be able to go to the arcade theater. They want to be able to go to the shops, and they want to be able to get around. And they're not, many of them don't feel comfortable driving their cars, so they want this system. That right there, to have it right there, to have it located in and around a downtown area, right near Lee Memorial Hospital system, it would be transformational. And I think that those are the kind of things that we need to be working on, not just downtown Fort Myers, but throughout Lee County. We need to be creating zones that are going to allow this kind of building and these kind of corporations and this kind of synergy to be going on. And with those zones, we need to be thinking really more effectively about transportation and how this can all be transportation-oriented development.